Tonight, advocates warn of more grave consequences if the crisis in our shelter system isn't dealt with immediately.
When you delay an essential service, people can die. So yes, people will continue to die.
What we know about how an asylum seeker died in a tent just outside a shelter in Mississauga, and the new calls for help from local officials.
His announcement falls short of addressing the real crisis.
Plus, why a new pay bump and recruitment plan for early childhood educators is not adding up for some childcare advocates.
Great energy, everyone's super happy, lots of people are just smiling and just having a great time.
And it's Christmas in November over at the Distillery District. We'll show you the lighting of the Christmas market's biggest tree yet. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. Starting tonight with a tragic story coming out of Mississauga. An asylum seeker died yesterday just outside of a shelter, and we're learning new details tonight about how he died, as his death is pushing officials in Peel Region to call for immediate help with the escalating crisis in its shelter system. Tyler Cheese has our top story tonight.
And right now we have on average between, on the low end of 46 to the high end of 150 asylum claimants sleeping outside every night.
Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown called an urgent news conference today following the death of an asylum seeker outside the Peel family shelter yesterday. He says the shelter system in Peel Region has been at capacity for months.
Our shelter capacity is at 321%. We have capacity for 500 and we're almost at 1,500.
Now, Brown is pleading with other levels of government to provide immediate help.
This cannot wait another month. This cannot wait weeks.
That situation has forced asylum seekers and others to sleep on the street outside shelters.
We are a beacon of hope around the world. And so to be a Canadian, to invite others around the world to come to our country, and then to invite them to sleep on the street was completely unacceptable.
Now, we don't have a lot of information about the man who died here yesterday, but we were told that he's an asylum seeker from Nigeria who was sleeping in one of these tents outside the shelter. Police have since confirmed that the death was likely caused by carbon monoxide poisoning from a heating device. Advocates say they're especially concerned as temperatures in the region are expected to drop below zero in the coming days.
This is what happens when you delay an essential service. Doesn't matter the time you bring it, it could be too late. When you delay an essential service, people can die. So yes, people will continue to die.
Brown says he spoke with the Federal Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship today to request immediate funding to help open more shelter spaces. Advocates also want a welcome center established near Pearson Airport for asylum seekers who arrive in the GTA with nowhere else to go.
I'm not picturing a big, luxurious space. I'm picturing a space that is safe enough to keep somebody warm, some food as they process their immigration process.
We reached out to the federal government for comment but have not heard back. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Mississauga.
And back in Toronto, this is a live look at the 12th annual Sleep Out Executive Edition, organized by Covenant House. More than 70 senior executives will camp out on the street all night, armed only with a sleeping bag, to learn about youth experiencing homelessness and show their support. 11% of homeless people in Toronto are youth, and up to 2,000 young people are homeless on any given night in our city. Proceeds from tonight's event will help Covenant House fund programs and services with a goal to raise $1.25 million. Now to Windsor and the conclusion of a murder trial that has struck a nerve with many in this country. A jury found Nathaniel Veltman guilty in the deadly attack on a Muslim family in London nearly 2.5 years ago. Chris Ensing was in court today.
Inside the courtroom, gasps and tears as the jury announced its verdict. Nathaniel Veltman guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. On June 6, 2021, Veltman used his truck to kill 4 members of the Afzal family, murdering 3 generations of the Pakistani Muslim family and seriously injuring a 9-year-old boy. The jury's decision was made after 6 hours of deliberation, reviewing 10 weeks of evidence introduced at trial, including a video confession to officers hours after the attack and pieces of a manifesto written to share his white national beliefs. The Crown said that Veltman did this to send a brutal message to Muslims and to intimidate them. Outside the courthouse, relatives thanked the Crown while asking people to reflect on the night of the attack nearly 2.5 years ago.
This trial forced us to return to that intersection once again. The dreadful crossroads where the very best and worst of humanity converged 2.5 years ago.
You can't deny the feelings of fear that people might experience, but this is an important step towards making our streets safer. And the fear is real. We have many of our community members who are visibly Muslim, and they continue to express, fears of walking down the street.
Today, the defense said that they will consider all of their options moving forward. We're expecting that a sentencing hearing will take place in December. Veltman will be given life with no chance to apply for parole for 25 years. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Here in Toronto, and returning to our top story from last night, Toronto police have laid murder charges against the man alleged to have intentionally struck 3 people with his car in North York yesterday. The dramatic incident happening outside an apartment complex in the Victoria Park and 401 area. A 61-year-old woman was killed and 2 other people were seriously injured. 79-year-old Ciro Garofano has now been charged with first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. He made a brief court appearance today, and police said last night the accused and the victims have a family relationship. And to an active police investigation in Mississauga, where a man is dead after a shooting late last night.
We received a call last night just before midnight for a shooting in the area of Royal Windsor Drive near Winston Churchill in the city of Mississauga. Upon arrival, we did locate a male who had been shot. This male was transported to hospital, where unfortunately he did succumb to his injuries.
This one happening at an industrial complex. Police say somebody called 911 after hearing gunfire, and paramedics say the victim was in his 20s. But so far, police haven't released his name or any suspect details. And new details tonight on that house fire in Regent Park. A woman is facing arson charges in connection with a house fire on River Street near Gerrard. No one was injured in the 3-alarm blaze that broke out around 6 Wednesday morning, and the flames and smoke also damaged neighboring row homes. A 41-year-old woman faces charges including arson, endangering life. All right, giving you a live look right now of our beautiful city, and it is 8 degrees tonight. The temperature is actually on the rise through the evening tonight. Colette is back tracking our weather story. And Colette, what a beautiful November day we had.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. With beautiful days like this, you just want to enjoy as much of it as you can, and then you can't help but notice that sun setting earlier and earlier. So looking ahead to tomorrow, the sunrise at 7:13 should still be dry at that point for the city, and then the sunset tomorrow at 10 minutes to 5, meaning that the hours of daylight just over 9.5, what we're experiencing at this time of year. The daytime highs, though, really something to see, especially into southwestern Ontario. And of course, it's, these are more towards the afternoon, and we've got a situation where your temperatures are actually holding in some areas or coming up. We're going to see that changeover happening through from Toronto on towards the east as we get through the overnight hours. It's because of the winds changing direction, so we see the temperatures rising when they normally would be falling and vice versa. But we do need to get into these showers that will be coming in tomorrow. Relatively light in nature, about 5 millimeters of rain towards the end of tomorrow morning's rush hour. Those will be moving in earlier than that into southwestern Ontario, and then they'll be riding back out into the afternoon, and cooler air behind that. So overnight, the temperature will actually be coming up, and then tomorrow afternoon coming down. I'll have more on all of this, and we'll explain it coming up.
All right, what a wild ride. Thank you, Colette. Next to that, pay bump for early childhood educators in Ontario. And starting in January, their pay will increase to around $24 an hour. The increase is part of the Ford government's plan to try to make the profession more enticing. But as Lorenda Redekop shows us, some advocates say it's just not enough.
The minimum salary for early childhood educators will bump up to almost $24 an hour on January 1st, up from the planned $20 an hour, with an extra $1 an hour every year until 2026.
We're talking about a lift in the first year of 19%, which will continue to go up each and every year until 2026. That ends the disparity that existed between our ECEs within our schools and the ECs within our childcare centers.
The government wants to bring in more registered ECEs. It's working with the federal government to ease foreign credential restrictions and make it easier for workers to transfer from other provinces. It's also launching an ad campaign to promote the job of early childhood educator. Education Ministry officials have said the province could be short 8,500 ECEs by 2026. That's the same year Ontario hopes to have 86,000 new spaces under the national childcare system. Childcare fees have already been cut by 50% for families with children in centres that are part of the national program.
It means parents no longer have to make the decision to pursue their career or put their kids in expensive childcare programs.
Know that the fees are going to keep coming down. We are on track to deliver $10 a day on average by year 2026. We're on track with respect to space creation.
Childcare advocates had been asking for a much larger wage increase, a minimum $30 an hour for registered ECEs, $25 an hour for other childcare staff.
Without those workers, it's not a successful program. And his announcement falls short of addressing the real crisis that workers have been telling this government.
The minister acknowledged there's no wage increase for non-ECE childcare workers, but the government wants to entice them to become registered, adding funding to pay for other childcare staff to get an ECE diploma. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Brampton.
The Deputy Prime Minister was in Toronto today for a funding announcement at the Evergreen Brickworks.
Having vibrant public spaces is such an important part of having a vibrant, healthy community that works and lives as a community. And this is one of the lungs, one of the hearts of our city.
The federal government will spend $2 million to help retrofit the Ravine Center at Brickworks. Another $800,000 will come from the nonprofit that owns the building, and the money will go toward energy efficiency upgrades with the goal of cutting the site's emissions in half. Funding will also support Indigenous programming and improve access to nearby ravines. The retrofit is expected to be done in 2025. As the nights keep getting darker earlier, one part of the city got a whole lot brighter tonight. Patrick Swadden was down at the Distillery District for the annual tree lighting and shows us the fun we can expect from this year's Christmas market.
It's only halfway through November, but down at Distillery, things are sure sounding Christmassy.
Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit ring. Later we'll have some pumpkin pie and we'll do some caroling.
And why wouldn't it feel Christmassy with Santa in town?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, Toronto!
The big man in town to light up the market's biggest tree yet.
3, 2, 1!
This year's silver fir towers over the market at 56 feet tall and took 4,000 hours to design and decorate. And that's got people jazzed.
Spectacular. Oh, it was unreal.
And now that Christmas tree is lit up and sparkling behind me, organizers say they're expecting between 800,000 and 1 million visitors this year. And unlike last year, the market is going to be open 7 days a week. So plenty of time to get on down here, fill up on those Christmassy treats.
Pancake.
You got the pancakes?
Yeah.
How good are they?
It's very nice. You have to try it.
So we followed our noses. It didn't take long. Emmanuel Katz-Nelson says it's his first year at the market.
Great energy, everyone's super happy, lots of people are just smiling and just having a great time.
Of course, it's easier to have fun in a group like these colleagues from the Ontario Tech Alumni Association.
We came together here to see the tree lighting and kick off the holiday season.
CS is the spirit, the smiles, the sounds. It's got a great atmosphere.
Spirits indeed. These two are helping warm up those bellies.
We're serving a bunch of different festive holiday drinks. So we have like a Santa's hot chocolate, which has like a cream liqueur and hot chocolate.
But hey, it's drinking for a good cause, with the proceeds from tonight's tickets going to Anishinaabe Health Toronto, Fred Victor, and the Toronto Star Santa Claus Fund.
It's just a great big event that really welcomes the whole world and shows what Toronto is, a celebration of, the multicultural community, the sounds and sights of the holidays, and obviously our local vendors.
Organizers say they'll be open until January 7th with a special fireworks display on New Year's Eve, meaning it's going to be a Happy Holidays! Patrick Swadden, CBC News.
Returning now with the latest twist in the rescue effort of a tunnel boring machine in a West End neighborhood. Last week, we showed you that sewage had backed up onto the street nearby where the machine was successfully removed after 19 months of city crews attempting to get it out of there. Now a Toronto couple is alleging the city job also led to a flood in their apartment last spring. City Hall reporter Sean Jeffords has their story.
Okay, I just got back to the apartment. Looks like our sub pump is doing its job.
Kyle Gibbons says he can still remember his panic. When he arrived at his basement apartment on Old Mill Drive one day last spring, water was pouring out a pipe near the door. His landlord had called to warn him there'd been a flood.
Oh my God. It's everywhere. The water was flowing through that wall as like a river from one end of the apartment all the way to the other end, basically going through all our stuff.
In 2022, a boring machine digging a new sewer tunnel became trapped under the street, 10 meters outside their home. Last spring, they say the work to free the machine cracked a pipe, causing the flood. They allege grout the city used to stabilize the ground blocked the pipe and sewage flowed into their apartment. The boring machine was freed on October 11th after 19 months of work.
This is unacceptable for the city to take this long. It's unprofessional. It's disrespectful to the people who live here.
A city spokesperson can't confirm or deny the work caused the flood.
Certainly that the city...
But Russell Baker says the city is currently trying to address sewer blockages in the neighborhood that appeared a few weeks ago.
We've brought in an outside contractor right now to conduct the clearing of debris and grout.
This expert says the entire project needs a strong post-mortem review.
We need to be able to have enough faith to go back and look and be pretty intentional so that we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Gibbons says they're trying to move on with their lives, but remain angry about the situation.
The lack of communication is really frustrating. Like, I get it. People mess up and no one wants to admit to that, but it's like, well, you're not the ones living in an Airbnb for an entire summer trying to figure out what your next house is going to be.
Meanwhile, the city says work on the project is paused. It says it's reviewing the terms of the agreement with its contractor about the scope of the project. And the city couldn't say if that means costs are going up or if that will result in further delays. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
An important note from police tonight. From now until the end of the holiday season, officers will be fanned out across the province looking for drivers under the influence.
The motoring public can expect to see police officers hard at work, conducting ride stops, ensuring every driver is safe, sober, and drug-free. Citizens are reminded that police can demand a breath sample from any lawfully stopped driver, even if the officer does not suspect or see evidence that the driver has consumed alcohol.
Impaired driving is the leading cause of road fatalities in Ontario, and the OPP is teaming up with local police services for the initiative, along with the group Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And the Festive Ride campaign runs through January 1st. We're back with more on tonight's unusual weather pattern, and instead of getting cooler, Colette, we're actually seeing the temperature rise overnight.
Yeah, we're really looking at it depending where your location is. The temperature's kind of doing the opposite of what you expect depending on the night or the day. But what we do know here is certainly the colder air back behind the cold front. This is where it was this afternoon. And if we move forward, we can see, jumping forward, behind it, the cooler air. Ahead of it, though, that south to southwesterly breeze. And that's what's having the impact on temperatures. So really seeing some of those mild readings into southwestern Ontario. And the temperatures are actually going to be rising from the Golden Horseshoe on into eastern Ontario as we go through the night towards tomorrow morning. But that front will be approaching. So tomorrow, the highs will end up being close to what they were today, but it's going to be short-lived and accompanied by some wet weather as well. So say after 8, probably even after 9 o'clock before we start seeing the showers moving into the GTA. Certainly earlier than that as you get some of these coming through the overnight hours back towards Windsor, Sarnia, and then that pushes out early afternoon for you folks. By late afternoon, you'll be getting into the clearing. It's going to take a little longer. So for the afternoon commute, I would suggest you might even want to leave it, stay at work a little longer, because then we'll be drying out into the later afternoon. But then that cooler air filters in. Now, what's nice is that it will be clearing the skies generally, so that as we get into the weekend, we will have some drier conditions Saturday, some sun coming back out, but the temperatures are going to be knocked back closer to seasonal for this time of year. So that push of a southerly flow ahead of the cold front, and then see how tomorrow afternoon it's already beginning to shift into cottage country back towards southwestern Ontario, and then we'll see those winds shift direction to right into Toronto as we go into the late afternoon, early evening. So the temperature will actually be falling into the afternoon hours. Overnight temperatures tonight really doing some strange stuff just because of that wind flow ahead of that front. So 13, that's in the morning. Then it drops to 0 by tomorrow night, and there we go into the weekend. Not a bad weekend at all, Chris. In fact, quite nice. Just get used to it being a little cooler.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Colette, and have a great night. Toronto officials and Métis leaders holding a flag-raising ceremony today in honor of Louis Riel. This is the anniversary of Riel's execution in 1885, and today was officially proclaimed Louis Riel Day in Toronto. In a release, the city says the flag-raising honors the contributions of Louis Riel and the Métis people. All right, and that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has you covered tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. And we'll leave you now with a look at the CN Tower, lit in red and blue in honor of Louis Riel Day. Looks pretty beautiful. All right, have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.